Good morning, everyone. My name's Andrea Barnes. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Next Sunday, we will be having our congregational meeting. That's January 22nd. We'll be discussing our finances and the results of our space task force. So please join us.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us here at Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church for our worship service. My name is Johanna Munson, and I am a member of Cedars and a worship associate, and it is an honor to speak to you today as the service lead. Our community welcomes you in all the beauty of who you are as a human being. We gather on this day, January 15th, the day that the beloved Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was born on in Atlanta, Georgia, back in 1929. He would be 93 today if he were still alive, and that's possible if he had not been assassinated. So I'd like to pause just for a moment and honor this person who is certainly one of our greatest teachers. As we venture into the topic of today's service, learning life's lessons, I'd like to share the Reverend King's thoughts from a speech he made at a Philadelphia junior high school graduation back in 1967. The speech is titled, "What is Your Life's Blueprint?" And these are the three tenets tenets that he encouraged those young people to live by. Tenet number 1, deep belief in your dignity, your own worth, and your somebodyness. I'd like to remember that word, somebodyness. By that he meant, don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth, and always feel that your life has ultimate significance. His second tenet in the speech was, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. By this he meant, set out to find what you will do in life. Once you find out, set out to do it, and do it well. He talked about being a street sweeper, and if that is your lot in life, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, like Beethoven composed music, like Leontine Price sang before the Metropolitan Opera. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept well. And the third tenet is commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Don't allow anybody to pull you so low as to make you hate them. Don't allow anybody to cause you to lose your self-respect to the point that you do not struggle for justice. He said, we must keep moving, we must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Now, most of us are well beyond the age of the students he was speaking to, these junior high school students. But I felt the power of these words and their continued relevance in my life, even as I turned 60 this year. It'll be in April. I hope you feel the call of his words as well. Let us enter into this time of reflection and prayer together as we listen to the prelude played by our guest pianist, Nick Coletto.
Thank you, Nick. That was beautiful. There's a quote by Joan Didion. Remember what it was to be me. That is always the point. In my opinion, feeling like myself is the best feeling in the world. I am not talking about feeling self-confident, though that certainly doesn't hurt the situation. It's not about feeling particularly happy either. Just reassured, comfortable, secure, comfortable in one's own skin. I felt like myself almost all of the time when I was little. when I spent my days reading and writing letters to fairies and dreaming about what my life would look like at 20, at 30. Maybe it's easier to feel like yourself when you're young because your world is a little smaller. No work, no major responsibilities, a tighter social circle, constant self-discovery. Regardless, as I got older, I began to feel a little less like myself. Not all the time, but sometimes. I've often thought that the young are most comfortable in their own skin because the natural tendency to be yourself has not been programmed out of you. Acting naturally is just the default setting for the younger set. When I look at my years of institutional learning, both in high school, college, and in my early jobs, what I've taken with me as important has changed and evolved with each passing decade. As a person raised in the middle class by smart, successful parents, I was handed a list of family expectations. You will attend the University of Washington. Everyone in our family attends the University of Washington. No argument. You'll settle into a classic, comfortable career and do well. This unwritten familial expectation ran deeply through the consciousness of our tribe and the tribes of my friends and colleagues. Back when I was coming of age, there seemed to be a predictable trajectory of what to do to be successful in this world. As I look at my changing priorities, as I aged through different jobs, or as I looked at my changing priorities as I aged through different jobs, as I stopped working to raise a family, and as I curated a family culture raising my young children with Jeff, my husband, I slowly came to the realization that the more focused we are on our intentions, the more control we will have over our surroundings and the outcomes of our efforts. This is a simple, or maybe not so simple choice. Let life happen to you, or sit squarely in the driver's seat of your destiny. Being in the driver's seat as a young person is easy. There are no societal obligations just yet. You have the space and hopefully enough open time to naturally discover your interests and passions. You still live in a family ecosystem with the actions and requirements of your siblings and parents interacting with your priorities, but as a young person, you have a sense of yourself because I hope I have this, because hopefully no authority has told you exactly how you must be. It took me a long time, decades really, to shed the expectation of the authority figures of my youth in order to freely discover what was important to me. As a young parent and spouse, raising children and keeping the home fires burning were my primary focus. I turned to Greek mythology and used the stories of goddesses of the home arts for inspiration. As my children grew older, I took on their interests out of necessity. Jeff and I spent countless days, weeks, and years as Girl Scout leaders, and Jeff got involved with the Boy Scouts with Archer. One of the activities I'm considering now that I'm semi-retired is working at our two daughters' favorite locally sponsored Girl Scout camp, Camp Wildside, as a counselor. Jeff and I also spent a good decade plus in the classrooms here at Cedars, bringing the UU principles and stories of our faith to our growing children in lessons packaged for the younger set. I often tell people that the best way to get a grasp of what Unitarian Universalism is to teach it in faith formation classes. The lessons are clear and thought-provoking and slightly easier to digest than the adult versions of the same stories, which often take a seeker down a more complex and nuanced path. Each decade, I find myself veering toward different interests and learning new priorities. This shift of priorities evolved as my parenting requirements slowly diminished. I have full control now of my time, my book reading choices, my recreation choices. I nap a lot, and this is a good thing. And work. There are so many takeaways from a lifetime of shifting career goals. Looking back on my work life, mine has been diverse, unpredictable, and surprisingly, at the end of my working years, just when I think I'm home free, I've been handed a complex design task that no one else in our firm has the ability to tackle, but the higher-ups recognize that I have those skill sets. So I'm still working. But this time I'm driving my own destiny in this role and setting my own boundaries. Oddly, after years of working with businesses and in work groups where I felt like a fish out of water, I'm now truly comfortable in my own skin at work, which is a first for me. This is true for my personal life as well. I believe that in order to feel at ease again, I needed to unlearn all of the internalized expectations from family, society, bosses, older siblings, and authorities that no longer applied to my current situation. I feel free now. I dedicate the lighting of the chalice to discovering our life lessons wherever and however they come to us. Please join me in reciting the affirmation which is printed in your order of service. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we all become the best that we can be. Please don your masks. We have extra masks in the back, and rise as you are willing or able in body or spirit, and join us in hymn number 1003, Where Do We Come From? We will be led by Alan Miller and accompanied by Nick Coletto.
So I'm sure you're all familiar with Aesop's fables. These are stories that we heard in maybe even preschool, kindergarten, and then we sort of take these into our hearts, and so I think you'll recognize this one. So I ask at the end, if you recognize the sort of one-liner of this fable, please just shout it out, okay? So this one is about the milkmaid and her pail. There was a farmer's daughter, and she went to milk the cows out in the barn, and as she was returning to the dairy, she had the pail on her head, and she had it balanced up there. And it was kind of a long walk from the barn back to where the actual dairy was. And so she just started musing, thinking about her life. And She thought, oh, I've got this lovely pail of milk, and that's going to be turned into cream, and then that's going to be made into butter. And gosh, I could go to the market and sell that butter. And when I have that money from the cream and butter that I've sold, I can buy a chicken, or maybe 2 or 3 chickens. And then those chickens are going to lay eggs, and there'll be more chickens. And wow, I'm going to have this incredible poultry farm. And I'm going to be able to take that money that I earn from all those eggs and more chickens and more eggs and buy some fabric and make myself a beautiful gown. And then I'm going to go to the fair. And I'll be in this lovely gown. And all the young men will be looking at me and flirting with me, and I will just toss my head and not pay any attention to them. Well, as she was walking, she actually tossed her head. And what do you think happened to that pail of milk? It was suddenly useless. And all her castles in the air vanished in that moment. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched, yes. So these tales are very familiar. We're going to talk about some other lessons learned, but that's one from my childhood that I definitely remember. Thank you, Nick. That was beautiful. So for a centering moment this morning, I'd like to offer this infinite worth meditation from a book by Michelle Masters. So I ask that you please close your eyes or lower your gaze as you are comfortable and follow my voice. Picture for a moment the infinite worth that you came from. Imagine you can go back and watch yourself incarnate from that place. From the outside, watch yourself come into a brand new developing embryo. As you watch yourself grow and develop from conception onwards, when does that innate sense of infinite worth begin to diminish? Does it happen right away, or does it diminish over time? Just watch from the outside and notice what happens. Now take a moment to notice any sense of worth or lack thereof you may feel. Remember, you are a part of the infinite expression of the universe, and even a tiny piece of infinity is infinite. You are star stuff. Now think of a symbol to represent the infinite worth that you came from. It may be a star or just a spot of light. Imagine that you can go back again and watch yourself incarnate with that symbol of your infinite worth in every single cell of your developing body. Then imagine stepping into that developing body yourself as that symbol of infinite worth multiplies itself all through the developing cells and tissue of your new body. Let yourself marinate in that experience of innate worth until you are ready to be born. Then, leaving all details of your past and your family aside that may be coming up, notice what it's like to come into the world with the infinite worth of the universe in every cell of your being, permeating your heart and your belly and both hemispheres of your developing brain. Breathe that experience of worth into your belly. Breathe it into your heart. Breathe it into the left hemisphere of your brain, and then from the left to the right hemisphere and back again. And when you are ready, allow yourself to grow up from that newborn body all the way to your current age, saying to yourself all along the way, I am and I am here, feeling that sense of infinite worth in every cell. When that feels complete, notice, how does this change your experience of life, yourself, the world, your sense of worth? Let the best parts of that soak into the fabric of your being as it feels most true for you. Take a deep breath in, let it out, and open your eyes and return to this space when you are ready.
We are at a time to share our joys so we can celebrate with you, and our sorrows so we can hold you in our hearts. This portion of the service will not be live cast or recorded, so I invite those of you at home to think about your specific joys and concerns, or sorrows, if you have any, so we can send our love out to you. If you do have a joy or sorrow, please step forward, tell us your name, put a stone in the water, share your sorrow or joy, place a stone in the water for your sorrow, or pour a little water in the bowl to represent your sorrow, your joy, sorry. sharing today. Now please stand in body or spirit and join us in hymn number 1053 in your teal hymnal, How Could Anyone? The offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to this people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our mission. If you are visiting us for the first time, please feel free to let the basket pass you by. We are simply happy that you're here today. Will the ushers please come forward? Thank you for your gifts.
So the concept of life lessons and how we learn them is an interesting one to me because of the shift I've noticed in the last year of how I relate to myself in terms of my self-worth. As I mentioned, I turned 60 this year in April, and that is a special year in Japanese culture. I lived in Japan for 5 years in my 20s and still feel a very close connection with their traditions. I find myself looking forward to this birthday because of that. The milestone is called Kandeki in Japanese. Kandeki, rather than being seen as getting older, is viewed as a rebirth. The reason for this is when a person turns 60, they have gone through the Chinese zodiac calendar, or cycle, a total of 5 times, and are now back at their original birth zodiac. The year of the rabbit starts next Sunday. The word kandeki itself derives its meaning from the words kan, return, and reki, calendar. Turning 60 is viewed as a chance to start over again. In the opening, I shared Martin Luther King's concept of somebodyness. I matter, regardless of what role or roles I'm in. In each role that we undertake, he encourages us to be the best that we can be in that role. As humans, it is inevitable that our roles will shift, that we'll leave some behind and take up new ones as the years and decades pass. In the Japanese culture, those who have reached age 60 traditionally retired and spent the whole year then reflecting on their life and finding meaning in the roles they had played. With fewer responsibilities, whether it be at work or in the family, it is seen as a chance to set new goals and enjoy life in a new frame of mind. We are all different ages here and have lessons of our own that are well worth sharing. So we're going to do some sharing. You'll notice on the back of your order of service that there are 4 prompts printed there, and some have a question or 2 questions. These questions come from an end-of-life planning workshop called How to Create and Live Your Legacy, which was developed by the Willow End-of-Life Planning Organization, and I am a licensed Willow End-of-Life educator. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to pair up, preferably not with the person you're sitting with right now. So you can get up, move around the room. For those of you watching online, we're going to put the questions in the comment in the chat section. And during this portion, it will be muted, so none of what you say will be picked up by microphone. Please feel free to don your masks if you are more comfortable speaking to somebody with your mask on. So these, you'll choose just one of the prompts, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And we'll have 4 minutes to answer that question, or questions, but within one, speaking out loud to your partner. The partner's role is to just listen, making eye contact as much as possible, and not responding or interjecting your thoughts. If the speaker runs out of things to say, the listener can encourage them to continue by asking, "What else?" or suggesting that they repeat what they've already said. Sometimes more words magically appear when we say things a second time. At the 4-minute mark, I'll call time and ask that you switch roles. The other person now chooses one prompt. It doesn't have to be the same one. Again, make eye contact and just listen. So the one speaker, this person is speaking, don't respond or interact with them, just show that you're listening, and then we'll switch. I suggest choosing one that's maybe a little challenging for you, or one that makes you think more deeply. Any questions? No? All right, I'll give you a minute to find a new seat and mask up if you want to and choose your question, and then I will start the timer with 4 minutes. So, how was that? Would anyone like to share just one or two words about what they are feeling right now? Not what you talked about, but just how are you feeling right now? Yeah.
I like talking to people.
You like talking to people?
And listening.
Yes. How are you feeling? Good, feeling good. Yes, great. Anybody else? Yeah.
Gratitude for the people who have impacted our lives along the way.
Feeling gratitude. Yeah. Great. Anyone else? Yes.
Lovely to talk to a young person who really appreciates her parents.
She appreciates her parenting. Very nice, very nice. Great. All right, well, I invite you to keep this week's order of service. Take it home with you. Make time to explore some of the other questions, either with a partner or by writing out your answers in a journal. Experiencing life from a place of believing in my own self-worth is the frame of mind that I embrace as I enter a new decade of being alive in this body. The first time I did the meditation that I shared, that line where we're asked to leave all details of your past and your family aside that may be coming up, immediately brought up stories that I've told myself about my childhood that negatively impacted that self-worth. I grew up with that stricter sense of lessons learned from the Aesop's fable that I shared. But through repeated practice, I now embody my symbol of infinite worth, which is a beautiful, graceful willow tree, and enjoy moving in the world with somebodyness. Thank you. And we will now sing our closing hymn, number 1024. Please don your masks. And we will sing this. We're just going to sing the first part, not the jazzy part at the end. Although we do have Ellen here who could lead us in the jazzy part. The first time we're going to sing it with do, and then Nancy's going to suggest a word. And then we'll pick maybe 2, 3 more people. Just yell out a word, and we'll replace the word do with your choice of words. Okay? So first time do, and Nancy will suggest something, and then we'll pick a couple more. Okay?
Please repeat after me as I extinguish the flame of our chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
So go forth this week with the spirit of somebodyness in you. There are many opportunities tomorrow to be of service with Martin Luther King Day. I know the Parks and Rec Department has programs going. Be of service to others in any way that you can. And always remember, your own sense of self-worth is infinite. We are all part of the stars and the universe. Go in peace.